Barrett to move.
Yes.
29.
Thanks. I move 29. Yeah, Minister, I'll keep this brief, but the property tax is still a very live issue, and I don't think anybody should fool themselves politically, if you like, about that fact. And the feeling is that once the general election gets out of the way, property tax is only going to go in one direction, and that is up. That the government has been holding off on the revaluation and the increases that will follow because they know how politically damaging it will be to increase the property tax, as would have had to been the case if the original plan for the property tax had been followed through. And the government has backed away from that because they know how regressive people feel it is. The government may dispute this, but to me it is indisputable. And I'll just put it as simply as this. You see, what did the property tax do? It replaced a progressive funding of local government with a regressive form of funding for local government. That's what it did. Now, at the time when it was introduced, it was suggested that that was not what was happening, that actually the introduction of the property tax was going to lead to better local services and more funding for local government. I always, and those of us who opposed it, always felt that was a nonsense, but that has what we said has turned out to be the case, because there hasn't been an extra cent for local government. And in fact, when you look at some of the budgets being brought in by local authorities, certainly that I'm aware of, in Dublin, notably Dún Laoghaire-Rathdown, earlier this week, Dublin City Council, far from there being more money for local government, they're cutting. They're cutting. In my case, they have cut, as I think I mentioned to you earlier on, the Fianna Fáil, Green, Labour, Soc Dem alliance now controlling Dún Laoghaire-Rathdown has cut the retrofit budget, which is supposed to, we should be doing more of, and they cut the environmental awareness budget, and they cut the community grants budget, and they increased rates for small businesses, and they've increased parking charges. You would have thought they'd have more money with all this property tax money, but they don't. They've less. Because for every cent they got in property tax, central government funding was taken away to the same amount. So that's actually what happened. We replaced a progressive tax, which was centrally funded through income-related tax, with a tax on the family home, which has nothing to do with your income and your ability to pay. And what you get for that additional burden, nothing. Nothing. And Owen Keegan, who I wouldn't always agree with by any stretch of the imagination, has made that point as well in terms of Dublin City Council's budget. So I think the rationale that was put forward was bogus, and the evidence is now in that that is the case, and that situation will get worse on the other side of a general election at whatever point some sort of revaluation or reconfiguration of the property tax comes in. I think that would be unfair. And I think it's totally just unjustifiable because, in my area, but this is not just about my area, I'm sure this is true of many, many parts of the country, the value of your house has absolutely nothing to do with your wealth or your income. Nothing. Now, it may be the case that the two correlate and that you have a house that's worth a lot and you have a lot of money too, but there is no automatic or necessary connection at all. And in fact, in my area, there's lots of council houses that people bought, but they are now worth a fortune through no fault of their own. In fact, they're worth a fortune now because no other council houses were built after that. And so anything, if you can get any kind of house, it's worth a fortune. but not because it doesn't bear any relationship to the income in the house and your ability to pay. And often the people in those houses are on very, very low incomes. So it's just not fair. It's not fair, and it hasn't done anything to improve the funding for local government and the services that follow from it. And in some cases, and this, the evidence of some of the budgets, as I mentioned, is that actually the situation is getting worse in terms of local government funding. So that's my case for saying we need a different way, a more progressive way to fund local government that isn't based on a value of a property over which you have absolutely no control and where it bears no relationship to your income, your ability to pay.